Yeah, I know, I know. Nobody wants to talk about this topic. Y'all seen that video by the NTP, whatever the fuck that was, gathering of just like I said, these people can vote, by the way, and they have voted. And like, the worst part about it is, I like to wear like, dark lipstick, black lipstick, and you see that guy, dressed as a woman, point of privilege, the point of privilege. He's older than me. He's not like, he's just looks terrible. And people could be like, that's bigoted, that's a shut the fuck up. We gotta start doing this thing sooner rather than later. We have to start correcting the mistakes of the adults. So I want anybody out there who has the capability of doing this, go out there, misgender, be as fucking, annoying to these fucking retards as humanly possible because holy shit. But it gets even worse, right? So I noticed alongside all these seal clapping retards, um, there was this one individual. She wasn't wearing her hijab though. She can get stoned for that, Iran. But she's sticking up for Iran, ironically. She's like, yo, we don't need to join this imperialist war in Iran. And it's like, are you an idiot? We never even joined the one in Iraq. Like, the only reason Canada went to go help fight in Afghanistan is because we're part of that, what do you call it? It's NATO. We're supposed to, we don't have a choice. That's like all NATO countries. Like, in a time of war, you have to do it. But like, Stephen Harper kept us out of Iraq, thankfully. And like, even though I do have my misgivings with it now, knowing that like, what was the end result of it? Like, if Saddam stayed in power, do you think like 9-year-old marriage would be a thing? Probably, probably not. It's hard to say because whenever you're dealing with, Islamic theocratic dictatorships run by, lonely ass guys that are echoing this statement, you hear this over and over again. We don't want to fight this war in Iran, this imperialist, Western Israeli war in Iran. And it's like, I pointed this out like in some of my first earlier videos, and even though like it's kind of a touchy topic for most actually for all people because number one, I'm not Jewish. Number two, I don't have the right to say this, and number three, even if I am right, like it's not going to change anything, right? So what I'm getting at is if the Jewish people consolidated, right? Like specifically guys around my age, they don't have kids, right? Like these are the stipulations. Like I'm not like a psychopath. Yo, abandon your family and shit, and everybody that depends on you, and go fight the Palestinians. No, I'm not like a psychopath, right? Like I was being reasonable about it, but like there was a reason about why I was trying to like rationalize, right? A lot of the times, because I follow like Israeli people on my Instagram, you'll see people casualties, and they're like kids. They're people half my age, slightly older, and that's that's the that's the end result of war. Like your enemies don't look for the strongest link to break. They always go for the weakest link. That's why they're shooting up like little ass like what is it, Orthodox all girls schools. That's why they're going after like people wearing their kippas and their like dress hats and shit. That's why they're doing all of this. And like I understand like that the Orthodox and Hasidic crowds of people can't defend themselves. They're 100% reliant on everybody around them, for better or worse. But like the rest of them could have like consolidated, like reinforced Israel and helped their country fight off this disease of people who like just kept coming and coming and coming. Like the thing with Palestine is that you're not dealing with just Palestine. You're dealing with the Lebanese. You're dealing with the Houthis. You're dealing with the IRGC. You're dealing with like all these Arabs that want to rape Israeli girls. That's the end result of this all. Like it isn't so much that the Israelis, the Hebrew people, got to give up their land. It's the people that they want, and they don't want to fucking outright say that because it's like it's kind of like a living contradiction how like you can hate people so much and yet you're willing to, impregnate them, have sex with them. Like, do you have no pride in yourselves? Like, I understand that there are like people talking in their ears and telling them, "Oh, you do this and you'll be this like, ferocious beast and like people will respect you, fear you and all that stuff." And it's a cope. It's a huge cope because we're seeing this a lot. Like all these people, NDP voters and stuff, right? We're secretly coveting the IRGC and the subsequent enslavement and sexual commodification of women in the Persian Peninsula. Like, we got to stop calling it Iran, dude. We got to stop calling, like, all the links from the past, all the people from the past. Like, we got to just break it down and bring back Persia because the irony of it all is that you can't have both. You can't have a liberated Iran and a liberated Persian people. We're seeing it now all too clear. Like like the craziest shit is you're seeing like people who don't speak Farsi, who've never been to Iran, who've never actually like spoken to any of the individuals who've had to live under this regime for their entire lives, right? Let alone people who like, half their age dealing with shit like, yo, you gotta cover up, you gotta like, obey curfew, you can't be driving a car or some shit like that. Like, yo, I would have put it by me that it's one of those things where you're gonna have like a kind of a Russia situation at the fall of the Soviet Union. Basically, the police are just corrupt and like either you pay them off and shit and you're left alone, or you're like you see like tons of people just speeding by them like super fast or like, yo, fuck you, man. There is no government, like just complete, not like anarchy 100%, but like anarchy on the books. And like, it's kind of getting like that here in Canada. Like you're seeing a lot more videos of like the Sikhs just like, taking shits wherever they want to, like in parks. This guy like pulls out of his taxi cab, and this guy, like, this is how funny it is. This guy just confronts him, and is filming him while he confronts him, and it's just like economy act. And the worst thing about it is, it's like, come on, man, have some common sense. Okay, you're gonna be doing something that like people don't want you to do. At least do it out of sight. You know what I mean? Like, like if I were to wake up one day, I'm so horny. It's time to start masturbating. You just in front of everybody, and then when I confront them, sorry, I'm almost done. Come on, leave it. Oh man, you can tell that like it's bouncing back at them because can you imagine you're growing up in a world realizing that you're part of a race of fucking losers and shit that have been subjecting women to basically de facto slavery, and you don't even know if your mom and your dad genuinely love each other. Aich. Aich. And I don't speak for every single fucking case, but like I'm beginning to think that like that might be a stipulation, like point of contention, if you will. They're finding out that love isn't free. Not love isn't owed to you. Love isn't gonna find you, especially when you're forcing people to do what you want them to do. Because if you were to ask them, right, they would choose otherwise. And I always find it so hilarious how like let's just like do the roll call of fucking losers who are doing this like you know body pillow Ayatollah love. They're probably like hugging their Ayatollah body pillow. No, I'll get vengeance for you. I promise, my dear leader. And they just tap tappity wap things. Okay, so let's start with Hassan, right? Um, the only reason that he's supporting it is because of like the whole fact that if there's no Iran, there's no Houthis, there's nobody, and the whole like deck of cards folds. It's just like no matter what hand you throw out there, you're folding, man. You can't win against the Jewish card. The Jewish card always trumps you. Oh, it trumps you. You got trumped by the Jewish card. Like I play out that Jewish star, the Star of David. Ah, deep down inside, like there's this like fantasy that they're probably playing out in their head where they're like, yo, the American people are gonna stand up and rebel against their government and military, and it's gonna be 100% successful, and there's gonna be like, actual change and shit. Yeah. Keep dreaming, dude. Keep dreaming. It's kind of like how the NDP, right, alongside the liberals, were backdooring all these fucking Pakis to come up in this country and shit, right? Specifically from Punjab, the Sikhs, right? And you could look at like the craziest example, Jaskarat Sidhu, right? Motherfucker kills up all these kids and shit, and is trying to play the sympathy card. Yo, I gotta take care of my kids. Oh, my kids, man. What about my kids? And it is just like, yo, you're not free, man. You're not a free man. Like, they want your vote so badly because this is what you see with the NDP, right? They think that they can just ask people for votes and that they can, like, gain people's power alongside the liberals. So, they're same tattoos, right? It's like, I'm going to ask help from the Palestinians. Then I'm going to ask help from the IRGC. Then I'm going to ask help from, like, whoever, right? And then they're going to ask help from the homosexuals. The same ones. You see those videos? Yo, holla at your boy Tal Red. You see those videos? All the gays getting thrown off the roof. Real support, like wings on your back, to help you fly. It's all falling down, dude. And the craziest part about it is you want women, and then you got them. Like, you see that girl standing up, saying like, "Yo, the imperialism of North America and America to go into Iran and fight the sovereign nation of Iran." And you see all these old ass liberal retard, NDP retard, like, fossil fucks, and they're being, purposefully like obnoxious on purpose, like intentionally just trying to piss you off. And you suddenly start to understand that, like, when you listen to me, right, you kind of get a clear picture on what's wrong with this world, right? These people were allowed to reproduce, and they brought people in to help them, shore up their votes, reinforce their decaying rhetoric, if you will. And now that they can't, reliably, like, depend on each other, like, you have the gays going against, these very much anti-gay, homophobic people who are also secretly gay themselves. Like, we also have to discuss one of the other bigger elephants in the room, the coming out and the blatant homosexuality of not only the shadow organizations of terrorists, Islam, the Khalistan movement, but also their affinity for kids. Yeah, that's right, the grooming gangs. Why do the grooming gangs exist? Why do people go after specifically kids? And why do you keep seeing it pop up in the news over and over and over again? And there's a very clear explanation for it. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been reporting on these animals for years. And the reason why is because they are kind of reading the room. They're kind of like narrating their own life. They went through the normal channels, elementary school, high school, post-secondary, whatever, right? And they lucked out. So what do? Well, much like Jaskar and Judge over in the UK, he gets his homies, his little cousins, his family members, to get antiquated with his classmates and stuff. And then he comes in as the super cool older guy. He drives, he can get alcohol for teenagers. He can do everything that the cool kids can do if they were older, but they're not. But and imagine just having that, like, rug, that foundation just pulled underneath your feet, and you just like fall flat on your face, flat on your face, and you're just like, huh? How come they don't like my car? How come they don't like my clothes? I'm gangster. I can get stuff, and it's like, yo, weed's legal, dude. What can you get? Kids aren't stupid, man. Like, the only thing, yo, and here's the funniest shit. ever since weed has been legalized, I've been noticing a trend by like, because I used to do it myself, but like I understand that like there are people out there who, whatever it is, they push swag, they're working for somebody, like they make it a career thing. And to be fair, like, we all have to renew whatever, right? You all have to make a profit off of it. But like when you see the desperation kicks in, like there are lines that I wouldn't cross. You know what I mean? Like when you're dealing with like fentanyl or like crystal meth or hardcore ass shit that will fuck someone's life up permanently, let alone your own. Like you slip that shit in your own drink. What is fentanyl? Like the super heroin, right? The fuck? The fuck does that even do? So like heroin's like a painkiller, so you're just like numbed. I hate that because like imagine you come back and then like you get sensitive about every little thing. It's like, oh my god, I'm cold. Oh my god, I bumped my elbow. Oh my god, oh, so much pain. I got a paper cut. That'll be the worst. That's why I always tell people like, yo, pain is inevitable. Don't be shy about it. Embrace it. Embrace pain, and also educate like everybody around you. Now that you know there's no such thing as adulthood, like you're seeing people like 45, 50 plus. The point of privilege. Point of privilege. My gender is. And this is why we gotta do it for the kids, man. The kids have no power in this. They're gonna get yelled at by their teachers, by their parents, by older peers in their school, I guess. Maybe high school and shit. Be like, hey kids, it's not fun to misgender. Yeah, it is. It's fucking hilarious. That's why you're gonna get pissed off about it? Because it's like, if you were to call me a girl, right? Like, okay, first of all, I know you're wrong, but I think that like guys have this like gut reaction, especially ever since we were kids. It's like, oh, you're a girl, you throw like a girl, you play like a girl, like, yeah, whatever, dude. Don't be ashamed of being a girl. Like being a girl, especially in 2026, being called a girl, that is. You can't be a girl if you're a man. But just being called a girl in 2026 is a huge ass compliment. Trust me, girls are holding it down. Holding it down. What is the largest student body graduating out of post-secondary education right now? The largest body. I hear it's over 65% and it's gonna get higher. It's gonna get higher, dude. This is over, man. These guys driving around their sports cars trying to fucking rape up kids and shit. The Sikhs, the Pakis, trying to fucking groom up kids. That's why they never wanted the grooming gangs to get solved. I've been following this guy, Harman Singh Kapoor, for about 2 to 3 weeks, right? Maybe 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And it's baffling me how not only little attention he's gotten from his fellow Sikh mans and shit, but how much help he's gotten from the community around him. Like they're just coming out, showing support for him, shopping at his store. They understand that, like, yo, this guy's a real man, but he's also on the defense. I'm not saying he's defenseless, far from it, but he's on the defense. And the fact that his fellow Sikh mans can't help him defend his daughter shows you not only how much of a bitch they are, but also what they really want. They want, the age of consent to just be something that's on paper. They don't really give a fuck about, like, your kids or anybody else's kids. They just want what they want. And they'll never stop. Like their passion for raping children is never ending. Right? Like this guy Jaskar Judge, like if you never like, seen any of these documentaries starring him, or like, the BBC took away the documentary. That's the kind of money that these motherfuckers have. It's like, yo, my parents, I do shit like that, like my parents are paying people to get me killed. So yo, it's the other way around for these guys, man. Real talk. You do what? What you making me look like that? Making me, how did I raise you? Yo, death sentence, man. Pure death sentence. But that is the differentiation between you and them, right? Like, how is it that something that is pretty obvious to not just you but everybody else is something that, like, you can't you know, shake on. You can't, make any like loss of ground. Like you have to hold your ground. Like they don't want you to like care about the women in Iran being free because they think that they should.